Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. My name's Daddo.
And I'm Daddo.
We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to the elders, both past and present. Last week we were shocked by the news that MasterChef judge Jock Zonfrillo had passed away.
The sentiments that flowed publicly have shown that Jock was a truly loved and a respected man. He leaves his wife Lauren and their 4 kids at a time that many thought he'd be celebrating all that is going on in his life.
I was talking to his mate last week, fellow chef Miguel Mastre. Miguel, of course, is devastated, and Miguel said, there aren't many chefs like Jock left in the world. He was one of a few rare humans.
Cam and I, along with our team here at Separate Bathrooms, are sending our deepest sympathies to Jock's family and friends. When we interview our couples, we feel a closeness with them, and they share their story and vulnerabilities with us, and we're just so honoured and grateful for each and every one of our guests. Jock and Lauren are no different. We loved talking with them both.
If you didn't know Jock, you haven't read his book or seen him on MasterChef, hearing this recording of our time with him is a lovely way to get to know him and his relationship with Lauren. And maybe you'll understand why his passing has left such a deep hole in so many hearts, not just here in Australia, but around the world.
So let's enjoy the humour and soul of Jock Zonfrillo and wife Lauren again. Nice to meet you both. I'm Ali.
I'm Cam.
Hello, Ali.
Nice to meet you, Ali.
Hey, how you going?
Thanks so much for your time.
Hi, very well. How are you, mate?
Good.
You two in actual separate bathrooms? What the is going on?
Yeah, we are. Separate, no.
Yeah, so we've lived in houses where we've had one bathroom with the 5 of us, and then where Ali and I have gotten on best is where I've had a bathroom and she's had a bathroom. And so we realised that's the key to a marriage, is to have separate bathrooms.
Or at least separate sinks.
No, I get. I hear you. I'm looking at you both, and you don't appear to be in the same room.
Yeah. No, we are.
Yeah, because I'm looking. It's funny because the cameras are set up. We call that. You call that in filmmaking. We're crossing the line.
Oh, funnily enough, we were on a trip, the trip that Jock actually proposed to me, and we caught up with some very dear friends in Paris, and they've been together for Dina and Dick, maybe 40 years or something. It's such a long relationship, and they just get along so well. And so we're just walking through Paris, and I'm talking to Dina, and I said, Dina, how have you guys done this? Like, I just want to understand it. And she said exactly what you two said, which was, we've always had separate bathrooms. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then a few days later, Jock proposed to me, and it was like, oh, okay, then let's think back to the last piece of advice I got. And it was that's their survival. That's what they put it down to.
Look at that.
Isn't that amazing? Well, welcome, Jock and Lauren Zonfrillo, to the bathroom. You've just mentioned there, Lauren, about your trip when Jock proposed to you. Tell us how you guys got together. How did you meet? It was, 4 years ago?
We got married 4 years ago. But our relationship moved really fast. I think that I look at it, if one of my girlfriends called me up going, hey, I met this guy, and then worked at the light speed that we worked at, I probably would have said a thing or two about, maybe slow things down a bit. But when you're in it, it feels right, and it is right. So I guess we met, a friend went to an event that Jock was at, a Krug Champagne event, and she's like, this guy seems like he might be really good for Lauren. And I was meant to be at the event and I wasn't. I'd stayed on a trip overseas and sort of missed it. So she sent me a screen grab and a photo of Jock. And I was like, oh, yeah, he does look kind of my type. She said he was European. Now, I know he is, but I'd assumed like Spanish.
Well, take it easy. Scottish is European.
I was going to say, Scottish is in the European Ryder Cup. You know,
yeah.
Scotland's...
So I feel like the definition was correct, but I feel like maybe she led me down a garden path. But
you wanted something more Mediterranean. I was half Italian.
I was thinking sounding Italian. And so the very short story of that is that I followed him on Twitter. He followed me back months later, and then we were like, oh, I sent him a message on Twitter just going, neither of us use Twitter. So it's crazy that was actually the moment where we connected. And I was just like, oh, my friend saw you at an event a few months ago and thought that you were like my ultimate guy. Like, you're a champagne ambassador, for God's sake. Like, how could you not be perfect for me? And then that was late at night. I mean, Jock had finished service in the restaurant and was cleaning down the kitchen. And so we just went backwards and forwards, and he called me and said, can I take you out for dinner this week? I was like, sure. And so he came to Sydney and took me out for dinner on a Tuesday, and then ended up staying Wednesday and then Thursday. And then on Friday, he's like, no, really, I've got a restaurant. I've really got to be in it. So he flew back to Adelaide and then called me from the airport and said, when am I going to see you again? I don't want to not be with you. And I said, well, I could probably fly down tonight.
Aww.
And so then I flew to Adelaide. And then we were just inseparable. We spent a week in Adelaide, up in a beautiful place, up in the Adelaide Hills, our own little sanctuary in Basket Range, and then a week back in my place, which was like in the rocks in Sydney. So we did this for a bit, and then it was just a little bit more time in Adelaide, a little bit less time in Sydney, and then we bought a house and
bought a house in Adelaide?
Yeah, we bought a house in the Adelaide Hills.
Yep.
And moved in there probably 5 or 6 months after our first day.
After we'd met, yeah.
Oh, that is
quick.
Yeah.
Started life together. We'd done it before with other people, so we knew what it looked like, and just started living a life in the sanctuary, I guess, of a beautiful property up in the Adelaide Hills. So we just had a lot of time. We had lots of fireplace moments and walks on our property and all that beautiful stuff. So it was a pretty nice beginning.
Oh, that's a beautiful beginning. Jock, you're on MasterChef. You are not currently working in a restaurant, though, are you at all? Is that a break for you? Is that good?
It's been really interesting. I think not having the constraints of a restaurant and the 60 staff that go with it, and the customers lunch and dinner 6 days a week. Or it's a lot of work. I think people look at restaurateurs and they think they're rich because they've got a busy restaurant or whatever. And it's the exact opposite. You're not making a huge amount of money, first of all, and you are the most time poor person that you will ever meet. And so not having the restaurant has freed up a lot of time for me to really appreciate, a couple of things, where I am in life, my family, relationships, friendships even, where when you're in a restaurant, you really are in the thick of it. And I think at the restaurant standard, the level that Arana was at, where it's 3 hats and it was, regarded as one of the best restaurants in the country, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that. Not necessarily when you're there at the restaurant either. You can't switch off from that. It's constantly on your mind. There's parts of it I enjoy because it's given me time, as I say, to spend a lot more time with my babies this time around, which has been amazing. Not having to go in and cook at service times, at night times and stuff, that's been really amazing. But I think also it gives you a huge amount of time to reflect on what is important, what you have achieved, what are the things that you have achieved that are actually even important. Like, I think we get to a stage in our lives where we've achieved a whole heap of stuff. And really, if you're honest with yourself, half of it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? It's just irrelevant. So it's been nice, I think. I think the only thing I miss the team. I miss my people. Yeah. I miss my team. I miss that creative outlet of being creative with a team, your team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I love bouncing ideas off of people and I love watching a team be creative, and be able to give the right surroundings in order for that to happen. In the case of a restaurant, the ingredients and the produce, the crockery, the cutlery, the environment, the whatever. So I miss that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think I'm all right.
So you're either like, is it mashed peas or is it mashed apples for your kids? Like, come on, let's work this team out.
Yeah. Do you want a smooth puree, or do you want pea puree, or do you want broken peas? I can do either.
Oh my God.
Smashed with a little thing on the side.
You'll get it as it's served. Take it as it comes.
Yeah, that's what I say, Cameron.
Yeah. Hey, so what have you discovered, Jock, then in this time of reflection? What is important? What, and do you both come together and decide that together?
Yeah, I think I think ever since we met, it seems to be that we've moved, and to correct me if I'm wrong here, we seem to move in one fluid movement. It's definitely not, neither of us are running our own race at any point. And, when we first got together, Loz still had the agency in Sydney, Pulse Collective, a lot of staff, huge business, and 17 years into it, you were a big deal, right?
According to you, yes.
No, you
Yes,
were.
you were. Yes, you were.
And the agency was a big deal, and you're on Gruen and all the rest of it. But we very quickly learned to let each other in to our lives. In her case, a business, a marketing. I don't know anything about marketing, to be honest. And likewise, I let her into my world of restaurants. And she didn't really know much about restaurants other than being a customer.
Yeah.
But what it meant is that our life became so entwined and fluid and beautiful at that beginning point. I think that made the best possible foundation for a relationship, because, and I think if you ask any of my staff back in the time when Loz and I got together, it's like, Loz came in and it was like all of a sudden this breath of fresh air. Jock changed into an even better version of himself. Despite the fact Loz wasn't a restaurateur, didn't know how to run a restaurant or whatever, but she was allowed to be a part of his decision-making process, and not just, making decisions here, there, and whatever, but, it was your idea essentially to do the pop-up that we did in Sydney, for example. And then Loz not only sort of came up with that idea, but actually made it happen. And when I say made it happen, I mean from the very first spreadsheet till the moment we locked the doors and after the cleanup. And for someone who's not a restaurateur, I thought that was bloody incredible.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? That's the essence of teamwork, isn't it? You both,
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we do it with this podcast. Ali I said, where are you now? She goes, I'm upstairs writing the questions. And I'm like, as she was doing that, I was downstairs actually spending the last bit of time with your book. Which I really enjoyed, by the way. So, I wanted to replicate the cover of lying in a bath fully clothed with a scotch.
That's where I found him this morning. I'm like, get out of the bath. We've got a podcast to
Get
do.
your clothes off. Yeah.
I'm channeling my inner Jock right now.
If you could
Even when we were
Jock, it'd be
shooting
great.
that, they were running the bath, because that's in our ensuite. They were running the bath, and like I go to all the stuff, mostly everything that Jock does work-wise, and they ran the bath, and then I touched it. I'm like, ooh, that's just not the right temperature for Jock. And they're like, no, it's fine. It's the right temperature. I'm like, no, it's not. And then the second Jock got in, he's like, oh, this bath's perfect.
Look
And
at
like
you
the
knowing
crew were
your
like,
man.
oh, yeah, how often does she run her husband a bath?
Lauren, look, you've probably been asked this before, but do you do any cooking at home? And do you ever get nervous about cooking for your husband?
I've got to say, I've obviously entered retirement now, so I don't cook. But I used to love entertaining. Like I was a pretty advanced foodie when it came to cooking, understanding and being able to choose wines, and then the way that I dined. I was kind of already in the food direction.
Yeah.
Now I like to think of myself as a muse. When it comes to the dinner party scenario, I like to come up with ideas and then walk away and set the table. I think that I provide Jock with inspiration for dishes, but he does I saw this great meme the other day of in the Notebook at the end where they're like sobbing and trying to work out, how do we be together? It's such a hard decision to walk away from something. But they were talking about what do you want to eat for dinner? Going it's so emotional. And that is our house every night, where Jock goes, just tell me what you want. There's nothing I can't cook. Just say it. Just say it and I'll make it. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. What do you think? And I mean, that's probably the most annoying thing I do in our life, which is being sort of not knowing for certain what I want to consume every meal of the day.
I think every female listening to this is probably just going, if only I had that problem.
I know.
Exactly.
And I actually said years ago, I know when I've made it. I know I've hit the big time when I have my own chef and my own driver. Like, could you imagine? And now I do have my own
Yes.
chef and driver
Yeah.
rolled into one. So it's like, it's the ultimate. But the problem is that he sometimes cooks like a chef and doesn't think about, like, for example, just had our second baby and I said, look, I'm kind of on the chubby side. Can you just help me, like, avoid some carbs and maybe tone down the oil and the butter? So I bite into a sandwich and through the sourdough hole, the whole hole pushes out with butter. And I said to Jock, I think you might have put too much butter on this. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, it's pushed out through the hole. And he said, I only put it on one side. So he was acting like he'd done me a favor.
It was double the dosage on one side.
Yeah, it's just like, darling, you're not helping. And then he gets a bit upset because he's like, well, I just made you the ultimate sandwich and your feedback is about fat content. And so, you know, we find our way through those.
What's the we call it our favourite dishes in our house 5 stars because there's 5 of us and if everyone likes it, it's a 5-star meal and we know that it's a go-to during the week.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So,
Good.
you know, what's your version of a 5-star dish? Give me an idea.
Oh, easy. Like,
Go on.
it definitely, Jock does like this barbecue chicken, but like he puts it in the smoker and it's just the best. And then all the vegetables, but the potatoes are always the star because he like quadruple does something to them that's not good, but it's delicious. And so I don't want to know what he does. But the chicken in the smoker, that's like if Jock says, it's your birthday, what do you want me to cook you? I'll be like, chicken and veggies, like all day long. And we'd probably do that once a week, maybe once a fortnight.
I think learning how to cook a whole chicken is one of the most important things that you will ever learn in your life.
Oh.
Okay.
If you know how to cook a chicken to perfection, then you know you will come out on top of, you know, friends coming around for dinner. You've always got a smile on your family's face on a Sunday, you know, and it is quite possibly one of the most satisfying meals to eat when you've cooked the perfect chicken. My chicken, you know, I can do it in an oven, I could do it in a smoker, I could do it in a Weber or a barbecue or what, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
The key thing is it's cooked at 104 degrees Celsius.
104.
104
I'm
degrees.
writing it down, mate.
Until the chicken reaches an internal temperature of 56 degrees.
Okay.
And then you take it out and you rest it. And while it rests, the temperature actually rises about sort of 8 to 10 degrees. So you're now in the 60s, right? And as the chicken rests, all the juices fall back into the flesh of the protein, right? And then you're getting the rest of your meal ready. You're finishing off your potatoes, you're doing whatever vegetables you might want to do, etc. You turn your domestic oven up full whack, high as it can go. You get your fat that was from the original cook in a little brush. You brush the top of your chicken and you pop it in that red hot oven for about sort of 8 to 10 minutes until it's fully browned. So it's been resting for, let's say, a maximum of 20 minutes.
Yep.
It's now gone back in the oven at full whack, and that will take the temperature right up until it's a safe temperature to eat. But also what you end up with is a chicken that's been cooked so slowly, it can only be juicy. It can only be tender and fall apart. And that's the key. And you've got a brown, crisp chicken skin on the outside. You've got deliciously juicy chicken on the inside.
It's 5 stars.
It's done.
It's 5 stars.
You know? And yes,
awesome.
it takes, the thing is...
How long does it take?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
From beginning to end, a maximum of 2 hours.
Yeah, okay.
Compared to if you throw a chicken in your oven normally, you're talking about 45, 50 minutes. But then that's why it's chalk and cheese. The 2 chickens, you can't even compare them, you know? It's turned into the chicken podcast. It's brilliant. I stuffed mine with, I cut a lemon in half, and then I cut a head of garlic in half, and a big sprig of rosemary, a big sprig of thyme. And then so I season the inside of the chicken first, then stuff it with the lemon, garlic, and herbs. And that's what goes in the center of mine.
Oh, that's a great notion.
Beautiful.
Here's a question for you, Lauren. Why do you think chefs are so cranky?
Am I cranky?
No, he's
you've
gonna be
got
more.
Gordon Ramsay. He's cranky. You talk about in your book how you've been cranky. But I want to ask the wife of a chef about crankiness.
Look, I think Jock's definitely not cranky in real life. But in a kitchen, and I've had
in the
exposure.
kitchen I'm talking about.
Yeah, in the kitchen, which I've had some exposure to, it's nearly like it's full performance, like lights, camera, action, the doors are open and the audience are there. And so everyone needs to it's like a slow dance in the kitchen. It's high pressure, but it's like these people have been slow dancing together and they're an old couple and they know each other's movements. They predict things. Like a kitchen is such an amazing place to observe. So if someone does something wrong and mucks up the slow dance, you get really annoyed, because then the knock-on effect is that, especially in a kitchen like Arana, which sometimes had 22 courses, if you mucked up the flow, then there's probably a little bit of intensity from the rest of the guys who had to now change things. I feel like Jock came from an era when the chefs were a bit feistier. And that sort of stuck as the definition of what chefs are like in kitchens. But no, he may have gone across in the book as some grumpy times, but that's definitely in the past. I think I've got the best version of Jock right now.
I think also in kitchens, chefs in kitchens, I think it's an interesting point. I've never heard you say that before. It is like, imagine going up to someone in the middle of a theatre performance, an actor, right in the middle of it, and trying to have a conversation with them. They'd be pretty grumpy because they're in the moment and they're trying to do the shit.
You're telling your story.
Do you know what I mean? And that's, people come into kitchens mid-service and expect you to have massive long conversations about the fish they just ate or something. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm super appreciated that you love that, but there's another 100 meals that I've got to get out. And, a team of 30, 40 people waiting for direction. And, if we bump the flow of this thing, the wheels are going to come off and it's going to be a disaster.
If someone does that, do you ever go, do I come into your place of work and tell you, have a conversation about, while you're trying to do your accounting or whatever it is? No, I don't.
No, but you do find yourself apologizing and saying, I'm really sorry. I'm just my back's against the wall. I just need to, I'm not being rude, but, and you're like, how can this not be obvious that I am, a little bit busy?
He says that, but then when we just had Isla, which was like at the end of last year, and I was fully, I had a cesarean, I'm lying on the table, he came in, they made Jock come in a little bit later than I'd hoped. Jock walks in and then he's having a bit of a laugh with the doctor, and the doctor's starting and they're joking and they're talking. He even talked about footy, which was a shock to me because he never talks about footy. And then Jock's like, oh, this is like keyhole surgery, like, oh, little hole, make it smaller. And I'm like, I just can't believe you're firstly joking, but this guy's got to concentrate.
He's started the conversation.
He's about to pull a very big thing out of a very little thing.
He's trying to relax the doctor. So if he relaxes the doctor, you'll be relaxed.
He's clearly an expert.
He was relaxing himself. And I was going, Pete, the doctor was asking Jock about food, didn't ask specifically about the chicken, but they're having food conversations.
He was talking to me. I was just responding.
The intestines of you are coming out, being placed beside you as the baby's coming out. It's like,
I didn't even know that happened, Ali. Why did you just tell me that?
Jock
Far
knows.
out. I hope
Jock's
they put them
seen
back
it.
in the right spot.
Jock wanted to cook them. Sausages.
Yeah. Like that into pate.
Jock, you've been so open in your book, incredibly vulnerable, and I can only imagine that the release of the book must have been a nerve-wracking time, probably for you and even for you too, Lauren. How have you supported each other during that time? Did you ever have second thoughts about, am I ready to actually put this all out there?
Look, for me, it was, I've done TV shows before. I've done, a lot of, obviously, restaurant stuff, and you kind of had a little bit of a name as a chef, right? And then doing some of those TV things, your profile grows a little bit. But then when you do something like MasterChef, your profile inevitably ends up going much, much bigger. And then all of a sudden there are a slurry of articles about one snippet of your life, one moment, one this, one that, one the other. And for me, it really, all of those things I read in isolation, and from a viewpoint of some of them shame, some of them worry about what people would think of them. But the overarching feeling I had is that it was so out of context, all of these little snippets, that I felt that it needed to be put in context in some way, particularly around drug use, where some of the articles that have been written in the past almost kind of glamorize, drug taking and that lifestyle and how cool and whatever else. And it's like, that's out of context. And so being able to tell the whole story and show that actually there are some real negative impacts on your life and the people around you by stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's not this snapshot of glamorousness. And the worry that I had of young chefs or young kids, reading that snippet of a story of my life and thinking that it's really cool to take drugs in large volumes and excessively over long periods of time. It's not okay. And so putting the book and all the stories within it in context for me felt important at this stage, given my profile had grown so much in a short period of time. Absolutely, the thought of it bringing shame to my mother, to me, to Laws and my kids. Of course, that's, it's shameful for me and parts of it deeply regretful and all the rest of it. But at the same time, if it's your truth, you can never run from it.
Yeah.
You can't hide from that. It'll always be there. And so if you're not open and honest about it with your kids, I mean, we all know you've got kids, they find out everything.
Yeah.
There is nothing that you can hide inevitably at some point. Why would you hide something that was so big and damaging ultimately in your life from your children?
I think we make, because we work and live together, so we make pretty much every decision together, and it's a really easy filter for us. It goes through the filter is this best for our family? And if it's not a very clear yes, it just doesn't get done. With the book, that decision didn't go through that filter. It was 100% up to Jock to decide if he wanted to do it or not. Because when you work together, of course you cross boundaries and you get involved. And if this was a project that he had to fully want to do, be ready to do it, and to go through the process by himself in his own way without me trying to. Jock's creative, and I'm the opposite. So that's why we work so well, because he can be creative and I can keep guiding him in the right direction. But with the book, it was 100% Jock's decision and Jock's process that he went through to get to the end of it. And obviously, that different days he came out of the study feeling a different person. Some days he was just a bit quieter. Other days he was really happy because he was thinking about moments that were pure joy. And so it was a process this year that he chose to go through, and therefore he pretty much went through a whole journey of self-therapy and trying to be true and not go, I won't put that in because people might judge me, just writing it down as it happened.
First part of the question, did you go to therapy, and have you guys done couples therapy? And two, how long did the book take to write?
So I've been to therapy on my own throughout my life on various occasions, and I had 3 goes at it as well. The first therapist I went to see after about, I don't know how many visits, said, I think you've got a little bit of a touch of OCD. And I was like, oh, shut up. Like, I don't switch a light switch on and off 10 times before I walk in a room, or do you know what I mean? Like OCD, we're talking about. And then totally dismissed. And I thought to myself, what a rubbish psychologist. And then I went and got, like a while later, another psychologist who pretty much said the same thing after one visit or 2 visits. And then I dismissed it as a bullheaded young man that I was. And then the third time, the psychologist said pretty much straight away, you categorically are a high-functioning OCD, and your outlook in the world is completely binary. You see the world in ones and zeros. Either it is really, really good, or it is shit, and you cast it out of your life. And then I was like, and she was like really bullish with me, which I needed. And so listening to that for me was I don't know what was going on in my face, but she clearly felt that she needed to explain herself a little bit more. And so she sort of sat back in a chair and was like, let's go through some examples.
Wow.
And then she just started to like pick apart my life, and it's like, and so she used examples like, I remember one of the examples she used was toilet paper. She goes, if you unrolled like a fresh thing of toilet paper and took the paper off around the outside, and you took the, when it has stuck to, it's glued together, that first bit.
At the start of the
glued it together, if you unpick it and it comes out and the sheets aren't perfectly matched, tell me the truth. Have you just flung the toilet paper in the bin in a rage? And I'm like, absolutely. Like, or
you mean you don't spend an hour trying to get them so they match up, pulling it out and carefully winding it back on?
Get out of my life, and so I think also there's that, and as she explained to me, that there's two things here. Maybe you were, that way minded, maybe, but from your story and your career, you've been in these places right from when you were working part-time through to being apprenticeship, through to working in Michelin star kitchens, where perfection was the demand of you.
Yeah.
And that nothing else was acceptable. There was no less than perfect. And so you've then applied that to your entire life. And the result of that is pure carnage around you, relationships, friendships, possessions, everything. Like, it just, that was a very revealing appointment, that one. And so that's the answer to that question. We've never done couples therapy together.
No, I think that I feel like, how people think that you do therapy when things are bad? And I kind of look at, I was doing therapy for a few years leading into meeting Jock, and then probably a year into being with Jock, probably even longer actually. And my mentality around it was always, yes, of course, I went there because things were bad and I was trying to work some stuff out myself. But then where I got to was that, I wanted to be Olympic at relationships and friendships. So you don't win a gold medal with your coach, and then when you're standing on the podium, you fire them because you've made it. You don't need any more help. So I see therapy as helping you get to the podium and then you stick with it because now you've done the hard work. Now there's a level of maintenance that happens there. Yeah. So we don't see anyone, and it hasn't even been a point of conversation for us. But I also think there's definitely some value in going, while things are good, maintain that. And our relationship, and I doubt I'm saying anything different to say you guys are other married couples, but it is so critically important to us that Jock and I are connected in every way, that we sit at the center of our families, we sit at the center of our businesses, and we have to be rock solid, and we want to create happy places. And if that's home or work, that's really important to us. And we know that the knock-on effect of us being unhappy at home is quite detrimental. Yeah. Kids are very, very intelligent little things, and they pick up on vibes. And if you've got the wrong vibe, you can dress it up with, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. They know it's not. Oh, yeah. Yep. And then the home starts not being happy, and then that keeps knocking on, it snowballs. Yeah. Well, so we are very focused on clearing things. Like, we've got someone living with us at the moment, one of our mates' daughters who's 25, and we had like a bit of an argy-bargy the other night. I wasn't very happy with something that Jock had done, and she'd only been with us a few nights, and she was like, whoa, mum and dad are fighting. And it was a pretty good argy-bargy, like some firm words to each other. And then she said it was really weird. Then like a couple of minutes later, you were curled up cuddling on the couch and talking like it never happened. And she was like, I just haven't seen that before. And I'm like, we've been working on recovery of disagreements because we have to, because we work and live together. Yeah. So if you can recover from that quicker, then you've got strength in that. And so that's what we focus on. And I think as we probably had the challenge of 2 young children and all the bits that come with that, of being pregnant and uncomfortable, and, Jock having to do a lot of lifting around the house because I'm breastfeeding for an hour at a time, and all the stuff. So we've definitely probably had, I think, some really potentially challenging years of our marriage, but they don't feel challenging. Like they're obviously very rewarding because we've got beautiful, beautiful family. But I think there's definitely something in knowing that the challenges, we survived them, and there'll be many more, so many more. But these ones are hard, having newborns and young children in the house. you know, they push you in areas you didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Fantastic.
We do a thing called the 2-minute shower, guys. Quick answers. We like to conserve
Right,
water.
let's go.
Question number 1, if you both give us answers to these questions. Question number 1, what the world needs now?
Kindness.
More carbonara.
Spoken like a true chef. What does the perfect day look like?
Day in the park with the family.
I was going to say rolling around the floor with the kids. Good food, family. Yeah.
Your favourite attribute of your partner?
Smile.
General beauty, intelligence, and physical.
Okay.
Love it. Who's funnier?
He's giving me bedroom eyes right now. I think
I
so.
can feel it. It's coming
Yeah,
through.
you're not steamy in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And that ain't the water.
Is now a time to talk about us having more children? Because I'd like to bring it up with Jock, but he
Whoa!
keeps kind of going,
They're
I think we're
through.
done.
These
I
are
think we're done.
quick answers. Come
All
on.
right.
No,
Carry
That's
on,
not a
Lauren.
quick answer, is it?
Mate, she just wants a quick yes, clearly.
Ali's got
go there.
3.
3's a good number.
3 is a good number.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, come on, next
Okay.
question. Here
All
we
right,
go.
who's funnier?
Probably Alfie. He's probably the funniest out of
Out
everyone.
of us two. Come on.
Oh, come on.
You're pretty funny.
Yeah,
You-
I'm probably funnier.
after
than
a couple of glasses of wine, you're
I get
definitely
funnier.
funny.
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Brioche or sourdough?
Sourdough.
Oh, done. What do you want most in the world to change?
I'd like COVID to go away so we can go back to Italy and Scotland.
Yes, I'd love this whole pandemic thing to be worked out to the point where we can travel again.
Yes, please.
All right. One word to describe each other.
Sensational.
Gorgeous.
Oh,
Perfect.
I'll do it. Lauren and Jock, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us on.
I just can't believe that as a teenager, seeing you on the cover of every magazine, that I actually got to meet you.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
honestly,
so kind.
Cameron, I love you, but honestly, Alec, I think you might potentially forget how aspirational you were
Oh.
for young girls when you were younger, because you were such a natural beauty and you were fit and you were all the things that we need to see in women on the front of magazines today. So I just can't believe I got to meet you.
That is
It was
the
fantastic.
nicest thing. Thank you so much. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you and both of you. So it's been lovely talking to you. Thanks so much for your time.
And when
Thanks for
lockdown's
having us in the
over, we're
bathroom.
coming to Melbourne. My folks are in Melbourne. We're coming to your place with that chicken.
Masterclass.
Yeah, let's do it.
And
I'll
I'll bring
play with the
some
children.
wine to go with it. And
Perfect.
how good will that be?
We'll tablescape. Ali, you and I can just get the table looking good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You guys are unreal.
Thanks, guys. Talk
See
to you
ya.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.